Ruth Nealman, also known as Grandma Ruth, died at her home in Minneapolis at the age of 111, just 5 days before she would have been 112. Nealman was known in Minneapolis for her volunteer work. KFGO Weather Center forecast showers, thunder showers this afternoon. We have some activity on radar to the west and southwest of the metro area. 66, which is our current reading. That's our expected high. 50, partly cloudy overnight. Tomorrow, a partly sunny day. A chance of showers, thunderstorms, 75. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Here's another little thing I enjoy about sitting in this chair right at about 2 o'clock and then opening up the text club. You can find that at 35270. That's provided by the Eye Consultants of North Dakota. Laney studio line, you want to call in? We allow that, 237-5948 as well. But we're going to be talking about a couple of initiated measures. The one in particular today that would... It would give you an opportunity to make it more difficult for you to change the Constitution in North Dakota. So we'll talk to Destin Garillo about that. This message, though, and we take any and all suggestions. And you know what? I wrote down what you want to talk about because I appreciate that. Tyler, I'm super anxious to hear where and how we can sign petition for legalized cannabis. Need to regulate to keep the fentanyl out of it and save lives. Great addition. David Owen, he's our go-to guy. In fact, I'll reach out to him, and maybe we'll have that conversation tomorrow if we got time. If not, we'll find a way to get that scheduled, because I know from following along with some of these, because he signed up for some emails, so he can kind of keep in the know of where things sit for some of these things. I know that they were looking for people to help get signatures earlier on. Now, that was a couple of weeks ago, and I have no doubt, as I've told you, that I don't think they're going to have much difficulty getting enough signatures, and if it gets on the ballot, which it should, I think it passes. But I appreciate the suggestion. We'll get David Owen on in just a little bit. One of the things, we're going to have this conversation throughout the day, but I want to know, and I'll throw this out, and you can text in throughout the afternoon here, and we'll dive in deeper a little bit later after we have a couple of our guests. But I have been bombarded from people receiving these. I have not received any of these flyers, but I've got people from western North Dakota. I've got people from central North Dakota, and yes, out here in the east, where you can listen to 790 on the AM dial, or 104.7 in the 100,000-mile radius. But mailers that are going out about critical race theory and the miseducation of America's youth. And they have a couple of dates and places of which they're going to be hosting a seminar. You can RSVP. AmericanExperimentND.org. Go there if you want. You know how I feel about this, all this scare tactic, get you all worried, and you got candidates running for the school board that are relying for you to be fearful and all anxious about this critical race theory that's not being taught. But they've been throwing out these mailers that are just conveniently going to be held right before the June primary. And it's another scare tactic, as I just said. But have you gotten this flyer? Have you gotten the invites to the information? I mean, the one that I'm looking at right now that was sent to me over the weekend, that there's going to be one in Wahpeton, Grand Forks, West Fargo, and that's going to be in a week from today. And I know out in western North Dakota, as I said, others had gotten the same flyer as well. I haven't gotten it, but I want to know if you have. 35270. Again, it's all about critical race. We'll talk about that because, again, you're taking all these national items, all the things you saw in the national outlets, and you're really injecting it at the most local level. Yesterday, we had a caller that talked about, well, everything's become national, even including topics. Well, that's because that's what's driving people to vote or vote against things as local as city councils and school boards. They're injecting it in there, and it starts with places like this having all these forums. They deem them as an educational forum, but you know what? They're just trying to sway your vote. But if you got those, let me know, because we're going to talk about that a little bit later on and whether or not you want to tend to learn more about that. We're going to take an early break here because I've got a tight window. Dustin Goverlo, he's with the North Dakota Watchdog Network. He's been on the show a number of times. He's on the right side of the aisle. I'm on the left side of the aisle. But you know what? There are a few things that we come and we actually agree upon. A lot of it has to do with money in politics and protecting your vote at the ballot box when it comes to initiated measures, doing what you want, and referrals. Both of those, there's been some news over the last week that have impacted those in this region. We'll talk about that when we come back right here on Afternoons Live. We're just getting started. I'm Tyler Axis. Don't go anywhere.
Our case behind making the threshold for passing a constitutional measure 60% rather than simple majority is the fact that it's too easy to buy your way onto the ballot. And I think that they discovered for themselves that that may not actually be true.
I doubt that they will acknowledge that, even if they get rejected by the Secretary of State's office. These signatures are public records, correct? Petitions?
At some point they are, yes,
Okay.
I believe so.
Well, and I wonder because, I was visiting with others throughout the weekend here. We had a busy weekend in Fargo when it comes to debates, when it comes to just where things sit going into a primary. And somebody talked about this very issue about the Secretary of State's office, whether they will be as critical and whether or not he will scrutinize this measure, knowing the powerhouse kind of groups that are behind it, as they did for the term limits. Is there any measure that, say, an opposition group or an individual that says, look, I want to know more? Is there anything such way to get an independent audit to this sort of thing, or has that never been used before?
There have been discussions in the last couple of weeks about that. We couldn't find any history of that happening as far as a measure that would be approved and then challenged by private individuals. We're still looking into that. And it kind of is resting on what the Secretary of State's decision is.
Yeah.
Most of the time, the effort is the other direction, like with the term limits folks, trying to find ways to get rejected signatures back in. And that's more common. There are firms around the country that actually specialize in that part of the process. But we'll see what the Secretary of State does. And we've got our feelers out as far as possible issues there. We would probably pursue acquiring those through open records, assuming that they are subject to open records. This is a part of the law that's very vague. It would seem obvious, but it is kind of vague.
I just keep coming back to the fact that the whole purpose of this measure was to protect the Constitution. They think it's too easy, and then if they get rejected because they didn't get the signatures or properly got signatures, that will be very ironic, and I have no doubt we'll be talking about that. But, of course, and I think you're right to point out that we'll wait and see what the Secretary of State's office does do with these, and we'll be watching when that decision comes down. I just know that when you look at the people and organizations and lobbyists and all that are throwing money behind the effort to do this, there's a lot of power players in the state, and for those that are in opposition, even though I think it's an easy argument to make for individuals like yourself, when you're going up against that dollar amount and what they're going to be pumping out there, that's going to be an uphill battle, Dustin.
It's a very emotional argument that there are outsiders coming in and messing around with our Constitution. And, I agree that the outside influence is an issue. However, making it more difficult for North Dakota citizens to use the powers that have been reserved to them by their Constitution for the last 100-plus years because we don't like what a few measures do is just not a good policy. We should not be that reactionary. The burden should be on showing that there's an actual problem with the process, not that the results of the process are not necessarily what we like. I didn't vote for Marcy's Law. I didn't vote for the Ethics Commission. But guess what? The people did. And, once the people say we want things a certain way, the people have the power to set the rules and the framework by which their elected officials operate, and then their elected officials have to figure out how to operate within that framework. And it's the ultimate backstop for government, for democracy, for Republican form of democracy, that the people have the ultimate say on how their government does or does not operate. And we need to leave that power in their hands because eventually, 20, 30, 40 years down the road, the very people that want to make it more difficult are going to be in the minority and wanting to use the power, and they will have taken away from themselves and from their kids and grandkids. And we should be trying to preserve this power for future generations because of the last 5 generations had it to use when they needed it, and it's worked out well on the net total.
Dustin Gurlow, my guest, North Dakota Watchdog Network. You talked about voting against the Ethics Commission. That was one of the two you mentioned that I did vote for. I did see a need for that. And one of the things, for example, what came out last week, and I know you were asked to comment on this earlier, You've got Ray Holmberg, longest-serving state senator in North Dakota, that, well, there was not a trip that he did not pass up. And we knew it was going on. Well, now it's been out in the public, and now the public knows. I'm curious, if not for an ethics commission, and maybe that's not the appropriate path, what prevents that, and what I think a lot of people would say is abuse of office, saying, okay, well, I'm in charge of the checkbook, being in the position I am. I'm the longest serving. So, oh, sure, Florida, yep, I'm going to go to that one. Bahamas, yeah, you bet. How about Mar-a-Lago, Montego, all those things? Ray Holmberg was going to all those. So how do you oversee something like that then?
Well, I mean, just because I voted against the Ethics Commission as it was written doesn't mean I'm against the concept. I mean, frankly, you and I both know that if the legislature would have approved Corey Mock's version of the Ethics Commission years ago, it wouldn't have been necessary for the people to come forward with a plan. And it was, and Corey's plan was a lot easier on legislators than this one.
No conflict of interest there at all.
Yeah, there should be oversight. There should be some rules, and it doesn't. It shouldn't be the Wild West, but we need to have a system in place where people who are in power are not the ones approving their own trips, their own reimbursements, and et cetera, because that's just ripe for problems. I mean, that's the sort of thing the Secretary of State should be in charge of. Obviously, the chairman of these things should not be the one signing the checks that they're going to go cash later on. There should be some sort of hierarchy, and the legislature itself should determine that. Now, there were enough legislators over the decades that took advantage of this, and so there was no incentive to change that. And I don't even know if the current Ethics Commission has it within its purview to do anything about that.
Yeah,
even today. So these things do need to be addressed, and it gets into the rumor mill issue. We hear all sorts of stories all the time about legislators who don't actually live in their districts, who are filing travel vouchers for things that may or may not have happened. It's very hard to track these things down. It's very hard to prove them, and good luck, making those accusations without having, the video evidence to do so. But we all hear this stuff. At some point, the legislature needs to police itself, just like they did in the Luke Simon situation. I mean, at this point, as more and more of these things pop up, Luke Simons looks like a scapegoat rather than an example.
Dustin, you got a little bit more time for me? Because I know you got a hard out here in a little bit, but can I get 10 more minutes of your time?
Absolutely.
Okay, because you talked about outside influence, and I want to talk about some influence at the highest office in North Dakota. That's coming from Governor Doug Burgum's office when he's putting $935,000 into a political action committee that he started with his money, and he's got a lot of the people that helped him get elected running the thing. I mean, there's a lot of influence going into some of those races out there. So Dustin Garlow is going to be my guest when we come back. Your thoughts, you can send those in to 35270. That's the Ag Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. We'll check in with Rusty Alverson right after this KFGO News. I'm Tyler Axis. Don't go anywhere.
Showers in and around Fargo-Moorhead, 65. I'm Paul Jergens. A man was hospitalized with burns after his charcoal grill exploded in a South Fargo mobile home park. Fire, police, and Sanford ambulance responded to the Buena Vista mobile home park. The man had poured gasoline onto the grill. He didn't realize it was already ignited. Fire Marshal Ryan Erickson says gas should never be used as a replacement for charcoal lighter fluid or to start a recreational fire. The city of Fargo and developer Jim Roars could end up in court, or they might come to an agreement on a plan to build 7 townhouses that were promised but not built by Roars Development Company.
The townhouses are supposed to be a buffer between nearby homes, large apartments, and the St. Paul Newman Center in the Roosevelt neighborhood. Roars was heavily criticized by some city commissioners earlier this month for not completing the townhomes by the deadline at the end of last year. Since then, there have been 3 meetings. The first was with Roars, his attorney, and city commissioners, followed by a meeting with Roosevelt Neighborhood Association representatives. Last Friday, the city received an offer from an attorney representing Roars. Assistant City Administrator Mike Redlinger said prior to the next City Commission meeting coming up at the end of this month, there's going to be a closed-door meeting which could include negotiations about Roars' offer. Mayor Tim Mahoney told city commissioners who received the offer to keep it confidential because of possible litigation. Don Haney, News Radio, KFGO.
Roars had earlier asked the city for more time to complete the construction of the townhouses. He says skyrocketing construction costs and congestion where construction was already underway caused that delay. 65, cloudy. This is KFGO News. .65 degrees. This is KFGO News. Authorities in northern Minnesota report the arrest of a man in a deadly stabbing Saturday night in rural Cass Lake. Deputies responding to a medical call found a 19-year-old man suffering from stab wounds. The victim later died in the hospital. A 34-year-old man was arrested. 2 iconic covered bridges at Lutsen Resort on Minnesota's North Shore were severely damaged by flooding. Pine and spruce trees were swept down the Poplar River during last week's flooding and crashed into the bridges. The owner says they can be repaired. 3 bridges just upstream on the Poplar, used to access ski runs at Lutsen Mountains Resort, were destroyed by that flooding. The state budget agreement in Minnesota between legislative leaders and the governor is only a broad framework with much more work needed. The adjournment deadline is a week away.
The agreement specifies total dollar amounts for tax relief, education, health and human services, and public safety, and leaves hammering out the details to conference committees. Senate Republican Majority Leader Jeremy Miller strongly urging negotiators,
focus on areas of agreement. There is not much time.
We asked Governor Tim Walz, would he reconsider and call a special session if Sunday night's midnight deadline passes and the legislature needs a little more time to wrap up its work.
At this point in time, the clock is the clock. The state of the state was the roadmap to get to this, and we are right on track to get there. So we're sticking with our roadmap, and we're going to get it done.
Bill Werner at the Capitol.
Chance of showers, thunder showers this afternoon, mostly cloudy. We have some rain on radar to the south-southwest of Fargo-Moorhead. And our forecast high was 66 from meteorologist Tom Szymanski, and we did hit 66 degrees. Partly cloudy then overnight, 50. Tomorrow, partly sunny day, mid-70s, another chance of showers and thunderstorms. Thursday, mostly cloudy, areas of showers and thunderstorms, at least a chance of storms on Thursday. 62, cooler and windy, cloudy Friday, chance of showers, 52. 65, mostly cloudy. Paul Jergens, News Radio, KFGO.
we get a Farm and Ranch report from Rusty Halverson, who's part of our multi-award-winning Farm and Ranch team. Talk about throat lozenges.
Okay.
Cough drops.
Okay.
Because, all right, I mean, we talked about flea and tick season earlier. I heard it on It Takes Two when the vet is in.
Yeah.
It's also allergy season. Seasonal allergies, miserable.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yep.
This year, it's found just a little tickle in my throat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Had to talk through it yesterday on the show. No one cares, but I'm just explaining to you.
Well, you and I share a hallway, and your office is near mine.
Yeah. You're hearing the.
And you're suffering, man. You're suffering.
Yeah. Well, that's when you were so polite. Because I was like, I just can't get rid of this tickle in my throat. I don't know what to do. And you come and he goes, "Do you want a Fisherman Friends?"
Yep.
What in the world is this?
Well, that was one of my cures that I offered.
Well, and I had no idea. The hot brandy. I said, "Well, I got a show to do."
No, I didn't do that.
You
No.
No, sorry, that was in my mind.
We're joking.
I was thinking about what I should have done. I've never heard of Fisherman Friend before. So then, and if you have heard out there, I mean, we're talking. I've become a Ricola guy.
Yeah.
When it comes to cough drops. That's the only reason, to be honest with you, is because of those commercials way back in the 90s.
Yep.
That long, what do you call those? That long tube thing?
It's a bighorn. Somebody in the text club knows.
Yeah, one of those yodelers. Was he a yodeler? With the Ricola guy? I don't remember the commercial as well as it.
Somebody out there knows.
Yeah, what do you call that big long horn that the guy on the mountain that was wearing the German flog things? I don't even know what those were. What? I don't. Anyway.
Lederhosen.
Lederhosen, there you go. Thanks. See, there you are. Getting my back again.
Well, that's something.
But hey, before that, boy, if you put some cherry Ludens in front of me, I'm eating that whole box.
Yeah,
those were just pure candy.
Yeah, candy. They were great.
They're still good.
Oh, yeah.
They even make those. I haven't seen a box of Ludens.
But fishermen's will make you stop and pause and spit it out.
In fact, it did. You hand me this Fisherman Friends, right? Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
You gave me this, and it's like in a safety bag.
Yeah.
Like with no sunlight allowed through this.
That's the first warning sign.
I'm like, okay, what am I getting into? Am I legally allowed to drive after I pop one of these things?
My mom gave them to me. I'm sure they're fine.
Reminded me of a gingerbread thing. They're just the texture, and it kind of looked like a dog treat.
Yeah.
Boy, did that open up not only my throat, but my sinuses.
Oh, baby. Yeah.
Those things worked. But as you said, after a little while, you have to.
They are also a radio announcer's friend.
Yeah. I couldn't do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, as small as it was, it did its job, and it did it quickly.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Oh, somebody knows.
Somebody
what a
knows.
horn
Yeah. Either it's about Fisherman Friends or whatever those long horns are from the Ricola commercials. Well, we get an answer. I know you've been following along with some of the egg secretary who's been testifying before Congress.
Yeah. We can talk about the secretary next hour if you want.
you want to keep talking throat lozenges?
Well,
okay.
no. Let's talk about planting progress.
Okay, let's do that.
A lot of our friends out there who are listening right now are burning fuel and they're putting crops in the ground, or they're tilling, or they're spraying. I mean, we've got so many things going on, and this time of year, for all of you listening. And when I call you and you pick up your phone, thank you, for one, because you're obviously working. But just a little update, Tyler. Up around the Hillsboro area, I talked to my friend Beth. They've got equipment moving up there. Weed pressure, not so bad so far. Talked to another friend, Carson from Winemere. He's working sugar beet land, and even some little corn spikes popping up from some early planted stuff that they got in.
Wow.
Yeah. And up in Grenora, another friend of ours, Tom Enander, raises potatoes. They were working on an alfalfa field today. They're going to work on potatoes next. So it's really a game about puzzle pieces and being able to get to one part of the ground that might be drier than another part of the ground. A lot of decision-making going on and stuff like that, too. Lots of stuff moving, though. Talked to a friend, Tanner, in Castleton, working in the Terrigator, running fertilizer, too. So, I mean, we've got a little window looking at the radar and listening to Tom's forecast. Spotty, hit, miss. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But everybody is just moving very rapidly out there.
I was happy to receive a message last night from a friend up in the north central part of the state. They were wrapping up or maybe they weren't wrapping. I don't know.
Okay.
But it was first day of planting.
Okay.
and he had a after his life can koozie with a nice, refreshing looking Busch Light in there. So I know that they're happy to be out in the field, that they're out there getting things done finally.
Yeah, finally.
Up in the Baker, North Dakota side. So.
Yeah, and if you're listening out there, Tyler hits the road often, and you can get a can koozie for yourself.
Yeah, you just let me know. In fact, Hillsboro, we're going to be up at Coffee with KFGO this Thursday. It's going to be at the Goose River Brewing. Mm-hmm. I can't put the beer in the cooler for you.
No, we don't do that. We do coffee and we do pastries.
But some people expected that last year when I had this. You mean I got to fill this myself? Yes. I'm a talk show host. I didn't get the money to throw in your Budweiser or Busch Lights, whatever. I'm a talk show host. I didn't get the money to throw in your Budweiser or Busch Lights, whatever it is you're drinking. Here's one for you. Tyler, my 97-year-old grandpa used Fisherman's Friends, so I had to try it. I was healthy, way too strong. But when I got a bad lasting cough, I tried it again, and it was the only thing that could calm it down. Grandpa knew what he was doing, and that's from Penny, who signs that.
Oh, thank you, Penny.
I mean, it worked.
Yeah.
But I could not get to the end. I didn't let it dissolve on its own.
Yeah.
I don't think it needed to, because it did the job. Early.
Yeah, it does the job.
Quite the texture for a throat lozenge, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know if it was a dog treat or a ginger snap or what it was, but it worked. Rusty, come back next hour. I'll talk potatoes.
Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah. Here's a box that says Fisherman's Friend. Put one of those in your mouth.
It'll do you good.
If one did. Rusty Alverson and Sarah Heinrich can go to KFGO.com to learn more about their work. Just click on that agriculture tab. Hakun Dabar, he wants to be your next mayor in Fargo. He joins us on KFGO next. Pope-mobile? That's the real term of this thing? Okay, that is a whole other
Yeah,
level.
the vehicle with all the bulletproof glass
Yes.
that he sits in like the fish tank.
We couldn't have thought of something more pristine, something more deserving of the Pope besides the Pope-mobile.
I think the creative team took that day off.
Yeah, just call it the Pope-mobile. Either way, he was out in St. Peter's Square when he stopped by a group of Mexican seminarians from the Legion of Christ, and they said, you know what I really need for my knee? Tequila. Now, I've been to physical therapy for a knee before. I don't know that the physical therapist would have said, sure, that sounds like a great thing. That'll take care of all of your aches and ails. Just have a shot of the Jose Cuervo before you go to sleep. But he's the Pope, so they said, sure, we'll get you some tequila. We'll find out if, in fact, that healed a little bit later on. I got to get you caught up with KFJO News. Hakun Dabar next.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, cloudy and 65. I'm Paul Juergens. A man was hospitalized with burns after his charcoal grill exploded in a South Fargo mobile home park. Police, fire, and Sanford ambulance responded to the Buena Vista mobile home park. The man had poured gasoline onto the grill. He didn't realize it was already ignited. Fire Marshal Ryan Erickson says gas should never be used as a replacement for charcoal lighter fluid or to start a recreational fire. A task force to address street racing concerns in Fargo will not be formed for now. The city commissioners voted it down. Commissioners Arlette Preston and John Strand were the only ones in favor of it. Preston, who is running for mayor, brought the idea to the commission. She says she feels the community should have a voice in cracking down on the speeding and noise issues in many parts of the city. Commissioner Tony Gehrig says he believes the city should give police enough time to see if their solutions will work. A St. Paul man has reached a $1.5 million settlement with the city of Minneapolis. Reporter Susie Jones says he was beaten during the 2020 riots.
Jaleel Stallings was acquitted of charges that accused him of shooting at police during a protest over the murder of George Floyd near Lake Street and 15th Avenue South on May 30th. After the acquittal, Stallings filed a civil lawsuit against multiple police officers and the city. His attorney said the suit was filed seeking accountability for the officers who violated policies, laws, and constitutional rights with impunity during the protest, again, that followed Floyd's murder. The city, as part of the deal, denies any wrongdoing.
Attorney Doug Wardlow says he'll run in the Minnesota primary after losing the Republican endorsement for Attorney General to business lawyer Jim Schultz. Wardlow, who was the party's nominee in 2018, is general counsel at MyPillow. He's an ally of its founder, Mike Lindell, a leading promoter of false accusations that the election was stolen from President Trump. In a video posted on social media, Wardlow says he's fighting the swamp in the Minnesota GOP. Wardlow's entry sets up at least a three-way primary race for the Republican nomination to challenge Attorney General Keith Ellison. KFGO Weather Center forecast looks like some showers and thunder showers moving in. We have some activity to the west-southwest of Fargo-Moorhead. 65 now, partly cloudy, 50 the overnight low. 75 tomorrow, a partly sunny, breezy day with another chance of showers and thunderstorms. Thursday, mostly cloudy. There is a showers, a chance of thunderstorms once again, and 62. Fargo-Moorhead, again mostly cloudy, 65. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Muscatel Pre-Owned. Muscatel's was voted #1 by localsofus.com for good reason. So stop in today to Muscatel Pre-Owned, just off of Exit 1 in Moorhead.
It is cloudy and 64 degrees. I'm Paul Jerkins. The top lawyer for Minnesota-based MyPillow says he's decided to challenge the endorsed candidate for the Republican nomination for Minnesota Attorney General. The decision from Doug Wardlow came after he lost to business attorney Jim Schultz at the state GOP convention. Wardlow, in a social media post, said the process was rigged and he will run in the August primary.
We were in the lead, but my opponents had brokered a backroom deal to wrest away the endorsement. The fix was in. But that's not all. The candidate who benefited from the fix ran a despicable smear campaign, lying and misleading delegates about me and my record. His campaign is largely run by legislative staffers. In other words, creatures of the swamp.
Party leaders have denounced the decision of Wardlow, who vowed earlier to abide by the decision of delegates. He won the Republican endorsement for Attorney General in 2018. 64. This is KFGO News. Mostly cloudy, 64. This is KFGO News. A man was hospitalized with burns after his charcoal grill exploded in a South Fargo mobile home park late yesterday afternoon. Fire, police, and Sanford ambulance responded to the Buena Vista mobile home park. The man had poured gasoline onto the grill. He did not realize that it was already ignited. Fire Marshal Ryan Erickson says gas should never be used as a replacement for charcoal lighter fluid or to start a recreational fire. The St. Louis Board in northeastern Minnesota is declaring a local state of emergency due to flooding, which is unusual for that part of the state this time of year. The declaration could make damage to public property eligible for state and federal assistance. Public Works Director Jim Foldussi.
Dollar amount for the state threshold is around $420,000, and I think the federal threshold is $700,000 to $800,000, $840,000. I believe we're going to meet the state threshold easily. I'd still put a question mark on the federal threshold.
Northern St. Louis County has the worst damage, but there are road washouts and flood damage county-wide. Sandbagging is underway at several locations. Two iconic covered bridges at Lutsen Resort on Minnesota's North Shore were severely damaged by flooding. Pine and spruce trees were swept down the Poplar River during last week's flooding and crashed into the bridges. The owner says they can be repaired. A St. Paul man who was beaten by police in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing and violent demonstrations will receive $1.5 million in a settlement reached with the city of Minneapolis. Surveillance video from May 30th, 2020, shows police in an unmarked van firing rubber bullets at Jaleel Stallings, striking him in the chest, and Stallings returning fire with a registered weapon he was allowed to carry. Video also shows when Stallings saw that it was the police, he put down his gun and laid on the ground with his hands on his head. KFGO Weather Center forecast, Fargo-Moorhead, still showers, thunder showers possible this afternoon. On radar, we have some rain, thunder showers to our west-southwest. We had 66 in our studios earlier this afternoon. Partly cloudy, 50 overnight. Tomorrow, partly sunny, a southerly wind, somewhat noticeable at 13 to 26. Another chance of showers, thunderstorms perhaps in 75. 62 Thursday, mostly cloudy, showers, and another chance of thunderstorms. 65, mostly cloudy. Paul Jergens, News Radio, KFGO.
If you're on hold, you stay there, and all these messages that are awaiting me and the I Consultants of North Dakota Text Club, I'm coming back to you as well. But first, Rusty Alverson's back in the KFGO studio. Said last hour, potatoes. Let's talk about them.
Okay. Well, once we get this crop in the ground, we've got other things to look forward to, some fun things. The Northern Plains Potato Growers Association is inviting growers and industry individuals to join a little golf outing at Fair Oaks Golf Course in Grafton. Potato Grower Staff President Donovan Johnson says all are invited. That will be Thursday, July 21st. But between then and now, a lot of work to be done.
I'm talking about what's the crops in the ground. How far is the progress of potatoes up in the Northern Valley? I'm curious.
Slow but sure. Slow but sure. Yep. Looking at the radar, we've got an open window up there. Guys are going hard from here north and off to the west. Looks like some showers. And as Tom Szymanski talks about, hit and miss.
Yeah, some will get hit, some will not. I know he's got that all locked down for us, and we'll get to that probably in about 10 minutes' time, get you the latest weather updates. But at least there's a window. Yeah, I mean, I just got more messages from the Southern Valley to the west, all the way up, and the Mulhall, or not Mulhall, but out in that Lake Skakawee area. There's people out and about all over the state that are out in the field.
Yeah,
so it's
absolutely.
Good. Finally, they are saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we were talking a little bit off mic about the name of the soundbite that I had, Potato Gulf.
Yeah, I know. Because I was thinking potato gun. And have you ever shot a potato gun?
I have not, but I've witnessed.
You witnessed?
Yes.
The thing's dangerous. Well, what's the ideal potato to be using in a potato gun?
Well, I don't know. I was not involved, and I am just staying away.
That's because you're an adult and you're mature. Not everyone listening is. I don't believe my producer is. I think, didn't one explode on you?
Not on me, but I watched it explode on somebody else, and it was scary and dangerous. Don't use white PVC. Probably best to not build them in general, but
they're still out there. People are still making potato guns. Let's be real here.
Yeah, we're not encouraging this behavior.
No. This is the disclaimer of the show. Don't always take what we talk about on air and try it for yourself.
Let's just say if you overcharge a potato gun made out of white PVC, it becomes shrapnel.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
All the more reason to not take this and try it at home. But for those of you that already have successful, I'm just kidding. What potato do you go with?
I mean, it's got to depend on the barrel diameter, right?
Yeah. I think the small red potatoes would be more dangerous, right?
I think they're all dangerous, but probably.
But if you had to put them on a list of risk scales,
okay,
I think the small red potatoes would be quite dangerous.
Okay, here's your list. Is it small red potato the most dangerous? Is it a hot dog or a T-shirt?
The potato, we rank that as most.
Okay.
Unfortunately, followed by the hot dog, which I still want the hot dog gun to be at the Newman Outdoor Field.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the Philly fanatic ruined it for everyone else that wanted that hot dog can. Then T-shirts.
Yeah, there's always
somebody always has to ruin it for everyone else. Yep. Rusty, appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
I'll let you get on that here. Rusty Iverson, Sarah Heinrich. You can go to kfgo.com, click on that agriculture tab to learn more. I'm going to come back to the phone lines. People want to talk about approval voting. Other people want to talk about buses, special assessments, all of that coming up right after this here on KFGO. Open to you, me, this microphone, your cell phone. You can call into the Laney studio line at 237-5948. You can text me at the Eye Consultants of North Dakota Text Club, which short code is 35270. You know the rules. We take phone calls before texts, and John has been patiently waiting. John, appreciate your patience. How are you today?
Fine, Tyler. You know, I am really happy in this election to have approval voting because, you know, I can listen to a candidate like Hakoon, and, you know, I don't have to worry if I think he's a viable candidate because of his background. I mean, I'm not dissatisfied with Mayor Mahoney. I'm not dissatisfied at all, but you see, I can consider other people as well. And you know what? Approval voting is, I think, you know, taking somebody who, you know, may not have a shot otherwise and making them a more viable candidate.
John, we had an interesting conversation amongst us coworkers after the city commission debate on Saturday. You know, and we got out of there. We were talking about approval voting, and our debate was whether or not. And I'll ask you, you know, just your thoughts on it, because none of us came up with, I think, the right answer, and I don't know if there is a right answer. But let's say there's somebody you really want to win, like that is your. Do you just vote for that individual? Does that give them the advantage by doing what I would call like bullet voting? So it's, all right, I know that there's 15 candidates, but I really want this person to win, so I'll only vote for that person. Give me your thoughts on that, because we're all over the place amongst us.
I don't think it does, because, you know, with approval voting you can vote for multiple candidates. I don't think it dilutes it at all.
No.
In fact, I think it's just the opposite. I think that if you have regular voting and a huge field of candidates like this, I think that dilutes votes.
Okay, there was some of that. You were not alone in that argument. I can assure you that some of the coworkers on Saturday were saying that as well. It was just it's a whole. I mean, I get it. This is the second time Fargo's had this type of system. It is still
and you know what?
new.
The last time was not a really good indicator of it, because we had one unopposed person running for mayor.
Fair. Yeah, that is fair. And one thing, I'm curious, and I haven't really gotten, you know, I mean, no candidate's going to say this, but if in fact this type of voting enticed more people to actually decide, you know what, because it's a whole new process, I might have a shot. Because I can tell you just from observing, you know, whether it's this race or those prior, this is the one that I honestly can tell you, John, I've got no idea. I have no idea what to expect here in the city of Fargo come election night.
And I really don't, too. I know who I'm voting for. I know the 3 or 4, I think it's 3 that I'm voting for mayor. And I'd be happy with either one of them.
Yeah. John, your friend's saying the same thing before I let you go, that because I'm curious, because there's so many candidates, that's why we're trying to get people on this show, aside from just these debates, because there's education that's been needed. Have people in your inner circle, have they made their mind up already as well?
I mean, yeah, probably.
Okay. John, I appreciate the phone call. I mean, approval voting, there's people very much excited for it. I think that there are people that are very much opposed to it as well. And I think those on the latter part they certainly seem to have more of a conservative background, I would say. And the reason I say that, I mean, Dave Pepcorn, for example, did at the city commission debate, talked about how he thinks it was a bad move because it would entice people to do what I said about the bullet voting instead of voting, as John's saying, well, look, I've got three people I'm going to be voting for mayor because I'm comfortable with all of them. And I make no mistake, at least this is where I come from when it comes on this approval voting. The reason why there was a push for this to be done is because you had city election after city election in which you had candidates on the left side who were quite similar in what they wanted to do with the job, and their votes were getting split amongst people that wanted to vote for both or all of them. And what was happening is they were losing those elections. And quite frankly, that's when you have someone like Tony Gary get elected. That's when you have somebody like Dave Pepcorn. And they certainly both have a groundswell of support. I'm not trying to take a cheap shot at either one of them, but that's the mindset, I do believe, of the people that were backing this approval voting change, was looking at the makeup of Fargo, the political makeup speaking, and the demographics of what's there in their mind saying, well, how does someone like Tony and Dave get elected? Or how do some of the others, like a Jennifer Benson get elected? And they looked at it and saying, well, it's because people are splitting votes. So let's eliminate that possibility. Let's go into this approval voting. We'll be one of the first to really implement it and see if that makes a difference. Well, I have no idea if, in fact, it did this last time, but I think it's safe to, kind of hedge your bets that it did. And as John's saying, this time it'll be very interesting. And when I look at the number of new American candidates who, quite frankly, have been very impressive if you've been following along with this, and what their ideas are, their unique perspective on what's missing from the city, what they would like to do to help out A, B, or C, which I will get to because some of you have texted those in. Now, you think about the growing number of new Americans that are here as well as a voting population. Now, instead of worrying about splitting votes, you can go and vote for every single one. That strategy is something, if I were one of those candidates, I would be looking at wholeheartedly. It's a whole new system. And as I'm sitting here talking circles, I have no idea what to expect. I mean, when I look at the mayoral race, I look at probably the two top candidates that are in my mind, but there's no guarantee because there's someone like John that called that said, look, I've got 3 people I'm voting for. Well, how many other people have? It's interesting. It's going to say a lot about this process and about the city here in a little less than a month. I'll come back to your messages. I got to step out of the way for Too Tall Tom Schmansky, get you a latest weather update. 35270. That's High Consultants of North Dakota. I'm coming back to you right after this. Tuesday afternoon's rolling on. I'm Tyler Axis, and this is KFGO. approval voting is the most millennial thing since participation trophies. I didn't know millennials were in charge of participation trophies. Remember when I was talking about Play Day? Because all of you that didn't have that missed out because it was like the greatest day in elementary school, especially when you had to participate against other schools and not just your own at some lonely rural school. We had red ribbons that were first place, baby, and I ended up with a lot of those. That's a humble brag. Not so humble. It was a brag. Then you had what? Red was second place.
Blue first, red
and then
second,
green,
white.
And green was participation was the last one.
Yeah, but
So
by the
we
way,
had them all the time, man.
who was giving us those participation ribbons as kids?
35270 messages coming in. I'll have to get back to those after CBS National News. I'm Tyler Axis, your host. Be with you this whole final hour. It's you and me. It's microphone, your cell phone. Got a number of ways you can get a hold of me. I'll come back to you right after this. Now, had I just been able to tune in for the entirety of the Solid Gold show on Saturday mornings, you can catch out Scotty Winston's work there. Many of you do. You can send in all you want to hear. But he was talking about Jerry Lee Lewis this week, and I must have missed it. I'm blaming on the candidate forum that we had, the city commission debate. I imagine we were setting up out there. But he was talking about Jerry Lee. I would have known then that he was still alive at 85. I just had no idea. I was shocked. I'm not shocked at some of the messages you've sent into 35270 about a variety of things. We had Hakun Dabar on earlier today. He's one of the 5 candidates for mayor here. And, there's a lot of candidates. And, I question whether or not the approval of voting has allowed for some to say, sure, why not? We have no idea what to expect. We can clump together, do this, that, the other thing. And this isn't a broad brush message or comment, but there are a lot of impressive candidates. Not all. There are certainly some that, are out there and got to question why. Hakun's not one of those. He is an impressive candidate and with his background, and he threw out policy things. And not everyone's going to agree with those, but I at least admire that. And people are asking questions a little bit about this. Tyler, if we don't have special assessments, what is his plan to fix the streets? And I can't speak for Hakun, but I do know that he said in our conversation, and I'll ask you whether you think that's an appropriate way of funding some of these projects. But he talked about the sales tax in Fargo and how much of that goes to the state, and if we just got a certain percentage back of that, the Bank of North Dakota, and a zero-interest loan. I mean, those things seem like they've got to be resolved at the state level. And quite frankly, when we've got lawmakers in Bismarck bragging about having the second largest piggy bank in the entire country, and you have, whether it's the city of Fargo or you have a county or you pick any township, when you're struggling to fund your infrastructure, I mean, you start looking out there saying, hey, you know what, especially if part of that is coming from a sales tax from your area. I mean, I think it is worthy to at least have the conversation as to maybe the formula and what should be allowed to stay here. And I know you could certainly find other formulas at the city level, but instead of sending it out to Bismarck to sit in the piggy bank or it's in a general fund, when they've got their own resources out there, it's one way. I'll question you because I've heard other candidates talking about, well, Fargo sales tax. Would you, and you can let me know at 35270, would you be in favor of getting down on the specials to the point where you eventually eliminate those and replace it with sales tax? Because now that infrastructure is being funded not by the people that are directly impacted, that are directly benefiting from it, but you got not only Fargo residents, you've got the metro area residents, you've got people from all over the country now putting in because they're coming here for concerts, they're coming here for, football games, for a variety of reasons. Everyone's got their own reason why they come. Hell, we had a couple from Florida text into the show and then come here because they're coming to Fargo on vacation. Well, they were going all over the places where you suggested. So you know what? If you do that, then it's everyone else is paying for the infrastructure. Does that bother you at all? Or are you one of the individuals saying, why should I have to pay for that? It's not my street light, not my sewer upgrade. Because there's that. That's the pushback that happens routinely. Now, when I talk about this, I think about an individual up in the Grand Forks area that called in and talked about the sales tax, even though he lives in a rural part, saying, well, look, I go to Grand Forks and I don't get a say in what they do, but I'm leaving my tax dollar there in the form of sales taxes. But is that an appropriate avenue to be funding infrastructure improvements for neighborhoods? Is the sales tax and get rid of the specials? That's one thing that you're going to have to decide when you hear from these candidates. That's part of what Hakun brought up. It's part of what you're going to be hearing from some of the city commission candidates when they do come on these airwaves. And if you missed some of that on Saturday, KFGO.com, or you can go to YouTube and watch some of that because they got passionate, especially that second debate. We had to break it up into two. I mean, there's no way you could get 15 candidates, 13 of which showed up onto one stage, and to allow them to actually have a conversation and answer questions. But in that second debate, there was a lot of talk about specials. We had Victoria Johnson, one of those candidates, on this very show yesterday, which she said, if anyone's on here is telling you that they're going to eliminate specials, they're lying to you to get your vote. That stood out to me. Now, at least some candidates are throwing out the alternatives for that and what they would do instead of relying on specials. And I think I heard that earlier today with the candidate I had in. But is it something you would agree with? Or I say, no, that's not practical. 35270. Another one comes in from that conversation. Tyler, Fargo City buses go nowhere near the industrial park where thousands of people work. They do go to West Acres, Target, and Walmart, a hidden subsidy to giant retailers. Nothing for common workers. Why? And again, that's when we have these debates that are hosted by KFGO, I think they've been very informative. Well done. And I'm just proud of this team that I just play a small part in here to get these together and to give you an opportunity to listen to the back and forth and ideas. And when that question was posed to the mayoral candidates back in, April, when we hosted it, to really kick off this June election here in the metro area, that's why we were having it, saying, look, the filing deadline's done. We know who the candidates are. Let's get the ball rolling here. The question of transportation was asked, and there was very few responses that had anything to do with any resolution to that very question, except for Hakun Dabar that brought that up earlier, saying, we've got resources here. We've got the fleet of vehicles here. Why are we so stationary in what we're doing, as they're texting in, saying, okay, the routes are this and only this. Meanwhile, if you go up north in Fargo, where you've got some of those, as you bring up the industrial parks, there are jobs up there. There are people that are going up there round the clock. So why not, if you're part of that employer, that if you can't find employees because they can't find transportation to you, I think it's worthwhile having a conversation of what you could do to help maybe get some of that transportation issue resolved. Housing, transportation, employment are the three biggest factors that I have seen in this area. Now, there's a lot of subcategories to what prevents A, B, and C for all of them, but they're not all separate issues either. 237-5948, it's the Laney studio line. 35270. That's one of the messages, a number of messages. Somebody's asking, how soon can a person start calling in for your contests? I told you when you heard the sounder of We're Going to Win Twins coming up sometime. It's a very short window. You just got to suffer through me for about 44 more minutes. Tyler, make the developers pay the specials. That works in new developments, right? Make the developers pay a little bit more when it comes to the streets, the sewer. You know what your specials will be going for. Now, here's what would happen. And this it wouldn't surprise you down the road, but what will happen, I suspect, is they're just going to put that into the cost of your home. So now you just put that into your mortgage. But what do you do for established neighborhoods? That's when you have a neighborhood that's been around, that's a legacy neighborhood, how do you do that on developers is a question. More messages coming in. I got to take a quick commercial break here. Final hour of Afternoons Live is rolling on. I'm Tyler Axis. You're listening to KFGO Fargo. 759 it. See people calling on in. Hope it's not jumping the gun for the Twins tickets. We will get those out in the next half hour, I assure you. And you can all just stop. I have seen the ESPN rankings, power rankings before the season has started. You don't have to keep sending it to me. Yes, I see that ESPN, for their reasons, have ranked the Carolina Panthers as dead last in their power rankings. It means nothing. The season hasn't even started yet. They're just getting into the training camps right now. Stop sending me the fact that ESPN, of all people, have ranked the Panthers last. I don't care.
This is exactly the same thing you'd be saying if they were ranked first.
I would be humbly, amongst myself saying, yeah, you know what? I think maybe they're overestimating right now. There's no way with this current makeup that. I'm just saying I don't need to see it anymore. Yeah, I've had dozens of people send it. I get it. Because I am the one and only you all feel that you've got to be the person but you're all thinking it, so all of you are getting it to me, and I've seen enough of it, all right? Switching gears, I'm going to get back to the phone lines and talk to Larry. Larry, thanks for calling. How are you?
Hey, you bet. Say, I've enjoyed KFGO's coverage of the city election. I'm a Fargo resident since '67 and taxpayer, and I've been listening. And I got to tell you, like last Saturday in that first part, they were talking about the big issue of the drag racing on Broadway, and that's a good issue to talk about. I mean, it should be stopped. But here's the problem. They all had solutions that said, well, these people don't have jobs, so we have to provide some jobs to get them off the street. Come on. You don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. The point is, they have money for the car, they have money for the gas, and they drag race. The police should arrest them and really fine them and kill that. That's one solution. You don't need to go to the taxpayer and say, well, you got to find a job for these people. Come on, there's millions of jobs. Not millions, but there's lots of jobs in Fargo-Moorhead.
Yeah, Larry, I noticed that as well, and I think you're right. It's one, I've seen some of the cars as well. They're not exactly, mom and dad's hand-me-downs either. I mean, they have modified some of these vehicles. They've got means to do so, and they're doing it at nighttime. So, it's not a jobs thing. It's not the people have too much time on their hands. I do think it is an enforcement thing, Larry.
Yes, we had a number of candidates on that debate coming up with that. Well, got to find jobs for them, and that's crazy. Yeah. The other issue I just want to mention, and the South Fargo residents and those driving into South Fargo to go to like Essentia Hospital and supermarkets. Here's the deal: we've got a cockamamie scheme that the city commission forced on the engineering department. After they had a good plan for revising 32nd or improving it, you got to fix the potholes, number one. But what happened is, in that second plan and the third plan that just was released, I talked to Jeremy this morning at the engineering office. They're taking out the right turn lane at 32nd and 25th. Those of us on the south side know that right turn lane to go on to 25th, one of the busiest intersections in Fargo. Mm-hmm. But Arlette Preston, what she wants to do is give pedestrians more time, put in some trees and flowers so it looks prettier. That's a thoroughfare, not a walking street. It's not downtown.
Yeah, Larry,
so,
this is news to me. Just at first blush, that is one of the most idiotic decisions that I think can be made. That area, when I get down there, if I'm going south on 25th and I get to that 32nd Avenue, it's so congested. And then if you get past there, I mean, say if you want to take a left, I mean, there's not enough turn lanes in that area, Larry.
But you know what the commission forced them to do is to narrow the lanes on 32nd so it slows down the traffic according to Arlette. That's ridiculous. And I talked to engineering, and I've been talking to them for a couple of months on this. I thought when they went back to get new bid plan, they'd revise that. I've talked to Mahoney, Strand, and Mahoney and Strand and Pepcorn and Preston, 3-2. They voted for it, and they want to take out. And she defends it. I talked to her. She says, "Oh no, See, that gives pedestrians more time to get across. Oh, come on. How many pedestrians? They don't have a count. Yeah. I said to Jeremy, how many pedestrians go across that street? They've got the lights. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Larry, I appreciate the phone call. I'm bringing that to my attention. And as we've been doing here, we're going to have Arlette Preston on, and we'll have to ask that question. When we were taking a lane out of Main Avenue in downtown Fargo, in a spot where you've got trucks going through, it's crossing over on Main, because it's all about walkability, right? That's part of the whole reinventing downtown, the Main Street initiative. You got to have more foot traffic. Okay, I understand that mentality of a downtown area. I still don't agree with it. I still would prefer having that other lane in Main, and maybe there's others that have come around to it. I'm not one of them. But that area down there, that doesn't seem to lend itself to saying, I'm going to go for a little stroll here and get to that intersection. There are spots in town, if you are a frequent traveler in a vehicle, that you avoid because of the road conditions. And when's the last time you went down 32nd Avenue? I mean, geez, you hope it's not late at night. You're probably get pulled over because you're going to be swerving, and it's not because you had anything to drink. It's because there's so many damn potholes. You're trying to save your tires and your rims. You got that situation, but also just getting to where you're going when you have backup traffic. So if it's any time during that rush hour, those are spots that I end up trying to avoid. So I don't understand why, because now we're going to have backup traffic on 32nd in front of the two hospitals down there. I'm on Larry's side on this. Your thoughts are coming in the text club. I'll get back to those in the final half hour right after KFGO News.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Rick Electric, proud to serve the Fargo-Moorhead area since 1964. Day or night, they're here for you. Find them at rickelectric.com.
Fargo-Moorhead, still mostly cloudy, 62. I'm Paul Jerkins. More discussion at the City Commission meeting about the Fargo townhouse issue in the Roosevelt neighborhood. That matter could end up in court. The dispute is between the city and Jim Roars, the developer, who's been harshly criticized for failing to build the buffer of townhomes. It's part of a full-block development that includes construction of St. Paul's Newman Center and a large apartment complex on the west side of the block. Assistant City Administrator Mike Rodlinger says there have been meetings held since the heated debate on May 2nd about the failure of the twin homes to be built by the deadline, which was the end of last year.
We did have a meeting with the Roars Company on Monday, May 9. And then following that, on Tuesday, May 10, a meeting with the Roosevelt Neighborhood Association and their representatives. We did receive a proposal on a Friday, May 13, from Attorney John Bolger, who is representing Roar's Development in this matter. And we're going to be talking about that at a future executive session with the City Commission.
Roars had asked the city for more time to complete the construction of the townhomes. He says skyrocketing construction costs and congestion where construction was already underway caused the delay. 62, this is KFGO News. .62 degrees. This is KFGO News. A man was hospitalized with burns after his charcoal grill exploded at a South Fargo mobile home park. Fire, police, and Sanford ambulance responded to the Buena Vista mobile home park late yesterday afternoon. The man had poured gasoline onto the grill. He didn't realize that it was already ignited. Fire Marshal Ryan Erickson says gas should never be used as a replacement for charcoal lighter fluid or to start a recreational fire. A former Proctor, Minnesota high school football player has pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a teammate last September. Alec Bainey was charged with third-degree criminal sexual conduct in January. According to St. Louis County court documents, Bainey, who was 17 at the time, held down the 15-year-old victim with the help of others outside the Proctor football locker room. Bainey then sexually assaulted him with the handle of a toilet plunger. A St. Paul man who was beaten by police in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing and violent demonstrations received $1.5 million in a settlement reached with the city of Minneapolis. Surveillance video from May 30th, 2020 shows police in an unmarked van firing rubber bullets at Jaleel Stallings, striking him in the chest, and Stallings returning fire with a registered weapon he was allowed to carry. Video also shows when Stallings saw it was the police, he put down his gun and laid on the ground with his hands on his head. Former State Representative Doug Wardlow, unsuccessful in his run for the Minnesota Republican Party's endorsement for Attorney General, has decided to run in the August primary election. Wardlow asked for the party's support at the convention last weekend.
Now, my opponent, Jim Schultz, he's a good guy. He's a great guy. But here's the thing. He has never really been in a courtroom. He doesn't have that experience. He hasn't tried cases. He hasn't argued appellate cases.
Political newcomer Jim Schultz defeated Wardlow at the convention in Rochester. Wardlow says he's exposing the swamp in the Minnesota GOP. He claims the nomination was the result of a backroom deal. Wardlow is the top corporate attorney for MyPillow founder Mike Lindell. Fargo-Moorhead, partly cloudy tonight, 50 for the overnight low. We have rain to our south-southwest, large area of showers and a couple of thunder showers, but get to see that rain in Fargo-Moorhead. Partly sunny, breezy tomorrow, chance of showers, thunderstorms near 75. Mostly cloudy Thursday, areas of showers and maybe thunderstorms again, 62. 61, mostly cloudy. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Here's your sounder. I've just been handed a pair of tickets to Monday night's game. Detroit Tigers are at Target Field taking on your Minnesota Twins. First pitch will be 6:40. I've got a pair of tickets. If you're caller number 5 at 237-5948, and you can go to Monday's game. If you can't make it, don't bother calling. I want you down at Target Field Monday night. Got to tell you, these seats looking pretty good. So caller number 5 at 237-5948. You and a friend, you and a spouse, I don't care who, as long as you and somebody can go. You call in, we'll get you hooked up. In the meantime, I'm going to get you hooked up with some national news. CBS will take care of that. Larry's got me thinking here, and he's got me a little frustrated about the conversation on 32nd Avenue. I'll give you some more thoughts and take yours when we come back here on KFGO. And Arlette's one of them that will come on. And if she's driving the factor behind this, we'll ask about it. Because we owe her an opportunity to respond why that turn lane would be gone. And I have no doubt either she's listening or the campaign staff, they're listening. I'll probably get a message before the end of the show. 237-5948. That's Lenny's studio line. You can also text me at 35270. That's the Eye Consultants of North Dakota. We'll get you a weather update here in just a moment from Too Tall Tom. And then people are sending in. I'm appreciating you not sending in all your immature email names that I have no doubt you still remember. Probably just not the password. But others are talking about NDSU and Fargo South as well. And yes, your Yahoo. I'll come back to those. We'll wrap up, have a little bit of fun. I see phone lines are blowing up as well. Get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom. We'll see what's coming up in the Drive Time News, Jack Sunday, and your comments right after this on KFGO. My email at NDSU was just my last name. That's how new email was when I started. I'm not going to throw out any dates of when that might have been. I just know that by the time I got out there, we had to have I think it was last name dot first name. And then that's when Facebook started. And people were saying, well, because you had to have a .edu account to get on Facebook. And I remember the first time somebody said, why aren't you on Facebook? I said, what in the world is Facebook? And probably not as clean of a term, but now we all know, and now we all suffer through it at times. Jack Sunday's got the drive. He comes on in the studio here. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, and pretty excited. I haven't seen any mosquitoes yet, but our guest today, Ben Prather, Cass County Vector Control, says they're coming.
Well, I have no doubt. I took the dog for a walk today, and there was enough water sitting around there, and there were some of the little gnats flying around, and there were no mosquitoes, to your point, but I know they're coming.
I saw one of those huge ones, and one of those that looked like a Lego mosquito or a little drone, but those aren't mosquitoes, and he's gonna debunk a myth.
Oh, can't wait.
So coming up on our drive time news, we'll have CBS News, of course, and then Paul Juergens with news, and Polly Lines and the traffic, and Ben Prather, Bugs Prather. Never called him that before.
See if it sticks today.
We're going to have some sports again, and ag news, and another ride with Joel Heitkamp, and that's just in the first half hour. And then we get into the markets, in the second half hour after the local news and CBS, and we have a Twins wrap with Dick Bramer and Derek Hansen. That's it during the third quarter hour of the drive time news. That's why we say it's all the news you need for your drive home.
Yep, all you need to know. You don't even have to turn on the TV while you're cooking your TV dinner.
Are we going to have afterthoughts from Afternoons Live today?
Do we have time? I've got plenty of thoughts. Yeah, my producer, who's also your producer, saying, maybe not.
Well, they haven't been that good, really.
Yeah, I know.
I don't mean that.
It's been a dry show today, hasn't it?
No, I don't mean that.
Trust me, that was one of the most polite insults I've got today. You should go through the text club and see what else has been said.
That was hilarious. Who is this guy, Don Rickles? And who's Don Rickles?
Yeah, that's what people out there, who?
I'm out of here. I'll be back with the drive.
I'll save this chair for you. Leave you a sticky note with my thoughts, Jackson. Those will be your afterthoughts. He's got the drive. You know what's coming up after that? Couch Potato Radio. Got Derek Hansen. Again, he can get you a little bit more. Twins are on these airwaves, but they're not taking over until 8 o'clock. Chris Atterbury is studio host because that first pitch, it isn't until 8:40 because they're out in Oakland. And I guarantee there will be more of you listening on these airwaves than there will be butts in the seats out in Oakland. I mean, at what point, if you own the A's, you're looking at ticket sales, do you say, look, we got to make a change here because things are looking down out there. But I'm glad you can watch that right here on your home for Twins, 790 AM and 94.1. Oh, don't forget 104.7 FM KFGO. Tomorrow, in fact, we'll get an All Things Twins conversation with Chris Atterbury. Speaking of, that's brought to you by Jiffy Lube and Linex. You can find them both here in the metro area. We got Bill Warner. There's been a deal made on the legislature. Good, because you know what? They got to wrap up here in the next couple of days. So we'll talk about what that means for you as Minnesota residents. The GOP convention, they endorsed Scott Jensen for their governor's race. We'll ask him about that. And this Friday, we're going to be talking about the Democratic DFL race and convention as well. That's brought to you by Weldon's Tire Service. So we'll get a preview of that. Got a full show. Plus, we got another City of Fargo commission candidate and so much more. But that is tomorrow, which means that's it for me today. I'm Tyler Raxis, your host here on Afternoons Live, and I will be back again for more of the show tomorrow. Telling you drive safe and you take care of yourselves. I'll check in right here on 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM, KFGO.